a serial founder who seems to collect acquisitions the way most of us collect recipes or Pokemons. Currently VP of product at Mozilla, where he's leading bold 0 to 1 product bets. Before that, he built Pulse, the AI meeting summarization startup snapped up by Mozilla, Tempo AI, a smart calendar scooped up by Salesforce, and All the Cooks, the recipe app that fed millions before Cookpad gobbled it up. Along the way, he's dipped into ringtones, live video, and even college dating. So the man who's done everything, basically. Raj, welcome.
Thanks. I'm the first person to tell you that it's much easier to do the same thing over and over again. Don't follow my career path.
No, well, I mean, when I did look at your sort of background, I mean, you've done a lot, and I don't want to give away your age, but you worked at Sun Microsystems.
So yeah, no, I was an intern there, just to be clear. So I was in college.
Yeah.
But yes, I worked on what was called the Java card, which doesn't even exist anymore. And that was just such a fascinating period because there would be stickers on everybody's office, and they had offices back then. There was no open workspace. It's kind of a new concept Facebook kind of pushed out. But you had offices, and in everyone's window in their office or door, they would have a sticker saying like, "Debt to Microsoft, down with Windows." Like, it was just like this really like rebellious era of open source and Linux and Microsoft and Napster and file sharing, and just the whole, like, it was just such a fascinating period to experience. So it's not age, it's wisdom.
Well, it's funny because my mom worked at Sun Microsystems as well, and so I grew up around Sun, and I suppose there's a bit of a contrast with Sun Microsystems and ChatGPT in a sense, or what OpenAI is doing. Because I remember hot desking was what Sun Microsystems was promoting as well. So being able to have information at one desk, and then you could go to another one, and magically all your information would be there. I mean, that was outrageously cool, advanced for that period. And Sun Microsystems, just so for people that know, doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah, so a couple things. So one, when I used to work in the office, so people think of like desktops, right? And this is like the PC era, but because Sun had their own Linux-based operating system called Solaris, or Unix-based operating system, not really Linux-based. Everybody got their own Sun server. So my computer was something called like a Sun E450, and it was like a huge refrigerator-looking thing, and that was my computer. And you'd use Solaris and do all your work. I mean, it was just such wild times. I think when I think of ChatGPT and I think of Sun, what I think of is just the incredible arc of how much easier it is to build software today. Back then, you had servers, you had racks, you had power, you had to worry about cooling and all this sort of stuff. You didn't have data centers. You had to set up your own web servers and security and buy your own SSL certificates and all kinds of stuff. And you really had to be full stack at a level of understanding that people can't comprehend today. People are now full stack front end, which is very different to like what it was back then, which was like MacGyver, right? So today I can spend 5 minutes and I can whip up an app that would have taken me 5 weeks in 2000 or 98 in this case.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. Now, I was going to touch on actually that adopting Gen AI across the workplace, but let's just maybe go back a step. You might be good at you've started a whole bunch of companies, you've sold a whole bunch of companies, you've been acquired a couple of times. But now, and I read one of your tweets, everyone is almost starting at the same level. So everyone, if you want something to be coded, you can get a code. It might not be great. So what I wrote here is, how can they trust that you are not just as good as the AI? And what are you going to do differently? How can you prove yourself to people that they should hire you? So in this new age, as a new employee, or as a student, or as a startup folk, AI, if you can use it properly, you can create pretty much anything. So how do you say you're actually better than anyone else? In the past, it was an MBA. it was going to Stanford. Now those degrees, okay, it's the connections and they might be good, but I'm hearing from a whole bunch of folks that a Stanford degree isn't what it used to be.
So these are two different topics.
Yeah.
We can dive into that topic as well. I have a lot of family members who went through Stanford. It's near my house. I think when I think of hiring in 2025, or we're going into 26, the interview process has changed. Gen AI has democratized fractional expertise, and the role as a IC or a human or whatever you want to call it is different. We are not necessarily the creators or the conductors. We're orchestrating. We're telling machines or AI or other worker bees what we need to get done. But then we are providing taste. We're providing sensibility. We're providing judgment. And all of those things are as critical as they've ever been, because a lot of AI generated output is soulless. It might be great as a prototype. It might be great to get 80% of the way there as a communication medium, but it's not production scale, supporting millions of users, and has some point of view that drives some, inorganic growth, right? Extraordinary growth. So I don't see those things going away. And so when I interview, I think a lot about taste and high agency. Are they somebody that wants to figure it out and get it done? On the other side of this, I've been remarkably consistent on this point. When people ask me, what is the single most important thing to excel at the workplace? And it's counterintuitive, but it's communication. I think in any workplace, you're dealing with people. There's stakeholders. There's persuasion involved. There's storytelling involved. There's empathy involved, right? All of these sorts of things, driving consensus, organizing a room, getting people on the same page, cracking some jokes so you come across as casual and humorous, get people to disarm themselves. This sort of creating this emotional connection and bonding, this is critical, and this hasn't gone away. And yes, you can be a rock star STEM engineer. And just to be clear, there's plenty of opportunity for that person. But for many, communication is absolutely critical. And AI, I don't see anywhere near being at a point where it's going to be able to create that sort of workplace bond. Sure, people are using character AI and having conversations with their deceased grandparents. Sure, people are having, unfortunately, fortunately, girlfriends or boyfriends over AI chat. Fine, but it's a whole different ball game. Getting 8 different smart people in a room and driving consensus and pushing something forward.
Yeah. I lecture in digital marketing, and it's been very interesting for me seeing out of sort of 10 students, one is a good project manager and they get everything done. And the project management side and you're I think a product manager, yeah. That is the role of the future almost. And it's exactly what you mentioned. It's communication, it's being able to herd cats. So it's not necessarily being a specialist at all of these various stacks, but it's being able to get all of these smart people aligned and doing the same thing. And there's another great tweet that I stole from you. And this is: the next $1 billion companies are 10-person startups. And I totally believe that. But I made a note to myself here: isn't that the case in all history? And maybe it's 12 people, but that the next business is going to come out of that. It's Microsoft's. They didn't start with 100 people, for example. So talk to me maybe a little bit about how is it possible for a 10-person startup to create $1 billion or be the next unicorn?
So that tweet was a little bit hyperbolic by definition. I was trying to stir some clickbait.
It worked.
I think it's really about the meta message. And the meta message is, previously, I had an idea. Let's say I wanted to go build a new smart lawn watering system. And I needed this device, and it would be wireless, and I can control it through my phone. And obviously this exists now, but it didn't exist 15 years ago. I remember when I was thinking about this. And I'm like, I don't know how to do hardware. I don't understand how you do wiring for, gardens, sprinkler systems, all this stuff, right? I could have gone and spent hours, days, weeks talking to various experts, from electrical folks to plumbing folks to hardware designed ODM designers in China, whatnot. I mean, the whole gamut. But it's just too hard. Like, I only know software. That's what I know. That's what I've been doing. But today, it's a totally different ballgame. Now I can go tap AI, and it's my fractional thought partner. It can help me evolve my thinking. It can fill gaps where I'm weak. It's basically, as I mentioned earlier, democratized all this fractional expertise. And the way I like to think about this is we have unlocked an incredible amount of human creativity and potential, because it's not that there wasn't a shortage of ideas. Everybody has great ideas. Yes, there are dumb ideas too, but who am I to judge? But everybody has great ideas. But most people can't execute on those ideas. And now they can. If they have the agency and willing and desire to do so, they can. And that is incredible. The fact that they can do that without needing to go break the bank, without needing to go spend countless days trying to find somebody who specifically knows how, the weather system works or whatever it is, right? They can do it. And I think that's just an incredible unlock.
Yeah. Well, I think that whole concept of prompt engineering and being able to having a creative idea is important. And you, just like me, were involved in data science BC, so before ChatGPT, and doesn't that annoy you a little bit? Because ChatGPT kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I know Oracle and most of the companies that I was working on, they were building their own LLMs, and they were going to launch these, and it was going to be internal, and it was going to be for themselves. And if only ChatGPT could have been kept under wraps for another 6 months, those companies would probably have launched these things. Google and I know IBM, the poor IBM, they were working really hard with Watson. Yeah, and that's been a bit of a.
I think. So, a lot of people, when in the US at least, I know you're based in Europe. Like, there was always this thing like, is this the year of mobile, right? Kind of like you had the Nokia smartphone, or what was it called, Symbian or Series 60, I don't remember. And then you had like Windows Mobile, and you had the RIM devices. Like, is this the year of mobile? Is this the year of mobile? And people would ask the question every year. And then eventually App Store, iPhone was released, and people were like, oh, this is the year of mobile. Like, you knew it was the year of mobile because this was the first time where there was no longer a job title that was like head of mobile, right? It was just, mobile is just digital. It's web. It's everything, right? Nobody really distinguished it as a different kind of product. I mean, obviously it's a different form factor, but people didn't really think of it as like a whole different function with different expertise and knowledge. This same question has been asked forever. Is this the year of AI? And I know this because I've been dabbling in the spaces of AI for a long time. My graduate thesis was in the area of computer vision. I was doing what Google eventually launched, something called Picasa, which was basically desktop face photo categorization in 2004. In 2010, I tried that problem again with food calorie tracking with the photo using computer vision algorithms, OpenCV, etc. And we pivoted because it just couldn't make it work. And then it became that big, large recipe community that ultimately got acquired. In 2011, I was the first .ai domain. That's a whole crazy story. I had to call the Anguilla Islands. They had to set up a DNS registrar in the library. I mean, that's for a whole nother story. I mean, I think Wired even wrote a piece about it, how the .ai domain emerged. But the point being, I've been in the area of AI for a long time, and we would always ask this question. So when Siri was released, it's like, is this the year of AI? Or like when Facebook Messenger released messenger bots. That was super hot in 2015. Is this the year of AI? Because they're all using some kind of machine learning behind the scenes or whatnot. What we saw before ChatGPT was a lot of companies using language models, not large language models like BERT from Google or whatnot. And they were fine tuning atop that. But the large language model phenomenon, we were aware of this coming, but we were not aware of how good it was going to be. And, OpenAI themselves has said that they were surprised themselves at how much better GPT-3 was compared to GPT-2, purely as a function of compute, which is fascinating to think about. Obviously, now there's a lot of tricks and other hacks and heuristics that are being applied to sort of make it feel like a better experience. But the underlying model itself it's interesting just, and I think this is why there's this incredible hyperscaler race going on right now, where people are so afraid that there's going to be some other step function and improvement by throwing massively more compute, that they're willing to spend billions in this AI arms race because they don't know who's going to be first. But what I have found, having worked in the AI category for a long time, it's generally very slow linear improvement and then a massive step function when there's some sort of CPU breakout, right? Some sort of like, some sort of like computational breakout. And we saw that, right? 2019, 20, we finally hit a point where you could run crazy compute on the cloud in somewhat of an affordable way. We might not hit that next inflection point for a while, right? It might be another 2 or 3 generations of NVIDIA with nuclear power or whatnot, because we're not talking about 2x scale. We need to 10x every time, right? And that's maybe when we'll see the next breakout. And until between now and then, my expectation is that the underlying model itself, linear at best, but there's a lot of things they can do around it to make it feel much more useful. And that's through integration of tools, doing pre and post work where it like tries to figure out should I even send this as a model or send this to a deterministic API? Should the output be text or should it be multimodal? All sorts of things like that. So there's a lot of stuff they're doing in those areas, but I think the next breakout is still a little bit of ways.
Well, it's quite funny because all I see in my head when I see this AI compute race is I see the railways in the States in 1890 to the early 1900s, where there was this huge rush to build train tracks across into the Pacific, etc. And they spent millions and millions, and then it just became commoditized. You can't make money out of those industries. So all of these big companies that are spending, Google building 7 nuclear plants, etc., for power, that's nobody else is going to be able to afford that, but they can't charge too terribly much for that. And another good example I heard is, with airlines. I mean, there was this huge growth in air travel, and now they're just 2 businesses. There's Boeing and Airbus, and do you want to be in that business?
Yeah, no, sure.
So that's a tough one. So I just want to go on to one more subject, and then we'll talk a little bit about Mozilla. And it was another tweet of yours. Sorry, I was checking out. Your tweets are fantastic. So I pressed follow and like on a whole bunch of things. But that presentation that Zuckerberg gave was quite a doozy. And when everything went wrong, and I think, as you said, everyone was hating on him. But maybe tell me about your perception of, it went wrong, but it went right at the same time.
It's funny. If you look at a lot of employee feedback surveys or engagement surveys, and you kind of ask why, and I always tell people to ask why and keep asking why. Why did they respond like that? Okay, and why was the response like that? And then why did they say that? And why? You get to an underlying reason, and you often see that in a lot of employee engagement surveys, the underlying reason might be something unrelated. It might be related to their personal work environment, toxicity. But one of the things that toxicity is another one of those overloaded words, but it could be relationship with a peer, whatever. But one of the things that often emerges is it doesn't feel authentic, right? They're in the workplace and leaders are popping off scripted conversations in all hands meetings, in team meetings. There's a dramatic decision being made and they're basically reading from a script. And part of the reason that's done is one, people react differently, right? I learned early in my career through my own startups. Once I was way too transparent. I realized that might have been not everyone can handle the emotional swings of startup fundraising and the ups and downs and whatnot. And then I learned to realize I should probably batch this so it's once a week, it's not every day, and then figure out who can handle whatnot. So they script it for reasons, right? They don't know how different people are going to react. But the other reason they script it is there's all sorts of concerns around liability. And in some ways, I feel it sucks, right? You're so worried that you're going to say the wrong thing that may create some sort of legal predicament, or that you can't necessarily be authentic. And the real trick here is trying to figure out that balance. And I always have leaned into high authenticity, right? So if you ask my teams, they'll say, I say what I'm thinking. I say what I mean, right? And that is double-edged. Now, you take that same metaphor and you think about product demos, people react the same way. They can tell when something feels authentic. They know it feels authentic. They get it. It didn't work, fine, but it felt authentic. You'll figure this out. Like, I have confidence, right? And they can also tell when something is scripted, when it's a TV commercial. If you look at just the trend of startup company video demos, 2015 era and before, high production value video demos. In recent years, it's the founder screen sharing. It looks really raw, right? Raw dogging it, as they say, right? So the point is, I think in the case of Zuck and presenting those glasses, like, sure, there was a couple things that went wrong, but it felt totally authentic, right? And he's had enough public performance now. He knows how to play it off. He wasn't, shaken by the fact that it didn't work, right? He turned it into a little bit of a joke, right?
Yeah.
And that's great, right? But, you contrast that with, for example, an Apple production, it feels like a production, right? And that sets a different expectation. And we saw what happened with Apple's AI, and how much disappointment there's been in terms of some of that, right? Just because of the expectations that they've set. So, I think the media likes to blow things up just because it draws clickbait rage, But I think for the masses, I thought it was a great demo.
Yeah, when you talk about authenticity, I think it was the most authentic I've seen Zuck, as you say. It just gave me very positive vibes towards Meta for the first time, because it wasn't overscripted, it wasn't perfect, and it was the first time that the vision of the metaverse actually came alive a bit better. You've seen those previous presentations with the stick figures, and it looked like a joke. And now it actually looks like it's going to happen. So I'm super excited with what these glasses are going to do. So that's fun. Let's touch a bit on Mozilla and your role as VP of Product. Now, you've run businesses, you've done startups. Going back into being an employee, how's that? And why did you do it?
Everyone has their own reasons. For some founders, it might just purely be financial. They're locked up for a certain amount of time and they want to stick around. For others, they might want to learn and excel, right? I talked about these different archetypes of individual contributors. You have people who work at early stage or 0 to 1, visionaries, craftspersons, whatever you want to call it. You have people who are later stage working on mature products. These are operators. If you're doing startups your whole career, you're usually on one side of that spectrum. In a larger company, you see different things, you learn different things, you build different skills. I think for me, one of my motivators was I thought it was a great opportunity to just learn how to sell to a large company. So I always told myself that, I've been doing startups my whole career, but and I would sell to big companies, but I've never actually worked in a big company terribly long. I would stay maybe for necessary earn-out period or whatnot, and leave. But in this case, I made a commitment saying, you know what, I want to see and learn. And then what's been really interesting is I really enjoy my work, right? So now, whereas my work has historically been building product, scaling it, doing all of that on my own, my job is much more about being a player coach, right? So I have a team, and like, can I help upskill them and help them get to launch and help them scale and help them drive growth, etc. Right? So it's a different kind of skill. That's not to say that I'll be here forever, and nothing is forever. And certainly my roots are always have been and will be building my own stuff in startups. So I'm sure I'll be there at some point, but at the moment, I do enjoy what I do.
Well, I think one of the most fulfilling things to do is to get that next generation of people who you can sort of pass on your pearls your pearls of wisdom, and try and squeeze the best out of them, because I think you've gone through that, and it's very rewarding doing that.
One of the mindset shifts that you have to reframe when you're in a larger company is when you think about people in a startup, if somebody isn't performing, the default mode in a startup is to effectively replace, right? Go find somebody who can get the work done. But in a larger company, it's not like that. It's much more, what is every person's talent and how can I configure my team to maximize each person's talent? It's a very different way of thinking. And part of that is because it's much more difficult to replace people in a startup, in a larger company. There's more rules and requirements, and there's, optics and other sorts of issues like that. But it's a different, you have to reframe your thinking because it's a different way of thinking.
Now, I see you've got a couple of socials. You've got X, you've got LinkedIn, and if you don't want anyone to read things, you've got Threads as well. If people want to learn a little bit more about you, have a look at. I mean, went onto your Linktree, and it goes down. It's like a Wikipedia entry, basically, of all of these companies. I mean, everything from Skyfire, Moby TV, Match Students. I mean, there's some good stuff. I remember all the cooks actually, and then Loop, which I'm now unfortunately having to use most days in Microsoft, but it's getting better and better. So obviously that's an interesting one. Where should I send folks to read more about you and to engage with you?
So as you mentioned, there's my X, there's my Threads. They're the same. They're syndicated. There's my LinkedIn. They can find me there. And then I will shout out a product I'm working on at Mozilla as well, Solo at solos.ai. So we're doing a lot of stuff for small business. So check it out. It's a website builder. But yeah, they can ping me, DM me anywhere there. My email is also public, raj@rajansingh.com. I'm around. I'm not hard to find. I was the #1 search result for a while, but Raj Singh is just too hard to optimize against.
Yeah, that's a tough one now, but congrats on getting #1 on there. I will stick all of those links in the description, but definitely check out your X as well. I found that very, very fascinating, and you've got some really nice presentations that folks can go and can look at as well. Raj, thank you so much, and we'll chat about a little bit more about Mozilla next time. I'm a big fan, and I love the new products that is always coming out with, and the focus on safety and inclusion and so on. So yeah, great to chat to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.